When I bring up divorce in front of my husband, Vito Corti, he happens to be toying with a lace H-strap that's gifted to him by a rising adult film star. Vito, the head of the Corti family, as well as the youngest Don and Emaly, orders his soldado to pick up his new lover tonight. Then, he shoots a languid glance at the divorce agreement on the table. How big of a tantrum are you throwing this time, my dear Donna? I reply calm. I didn't touch the bank card tied to the private account. I also don't want the estate in Emaly, as well as the bulletproof convoy. I have already entrusted the asset management authority to your consigliere. Vito is stunned for a moment, but he still thinks I'm still throwing a tantrum. You don't want those assets? Then what do you want? My devotion? Gia, I already told you in the past that you're the woman with the highest position in the family, but it's too boring for a Don to own just one woman. He tries to reach out, feel my cheek, thinking that I'll act the same way as before, that I'll give him in a roundabout way after lashing out at him, but I just avoid his hand. I no longer want Vito's devotion. Now, I just want to leave him. Chapter 1. I dragged Vito Corti out of a pool of blood. 5 years ago, on a rainy night, I was still a capo managing the docks for the Corti family. I was patrolling my territory when I found him cornered by a rival family in the abandoned container yard at the pier. Through my car window, I watched the man fighting for his life in that desperate situation. He moved like a trap beast, every counterattack carrying a destructive kind of beauty. Eventually, fell. Just as a dagger was about to pierce his heart, my men cleared the scene. Holding an umbrella, I walked up. My black heels pressed into the muddy ground mixed with blood as I looked down at this man-covered eye and wound. At the time, the Corti family faced an unprecedented crisis. The old Don was aging, and of his only 2 biological sons, one died in last year's gang warfare. The other despised mafia business and fled long ago to pursue art instead. Inside the family, ambitions stirred. Outside, powerful enemies circled. I'll save you. You repay me with everything you have. How about it? I asked. He lifted his head. Those dark eyes gleamed in the darkness, filled with unconcealed hunger for power and raw ambition. He didn't answer. He simply grabbed my ankle, the force so strong it felt like he wanted to crush my bone. I didn't struggle. I let it study me. I wasn't a good person. I was simply choosing the sharpest blade for myself, and he was ruthless enough, wrong enough, and ambitious enough. I brought him back to the family, taught him the rules, and introduced him to the old Don, Lorenzo C. Corti. Vito didn't disappoint. He even exceeded my control. He was ruthless and possessed astonishing strategic brilliance. In just 3 years, he wiped out all hostile forces and even took a nearly fatal bullet for Don Lore. Enzo. That was the crucial step to his rise. On his deathbed, Don Lorenzo formally adopted Vito as a son, gave him the prestigious surname Corti, and placed the family's power in his. In return, he married me and made me his only madre of the Corti family. At the wedding, he slipped the ruby ring symbolizing the family's highest authority onto my finger and whispered a promise in my ear. Gia Fontana, you are my life, my only woman. Back then, I believed him. That lasted until women of every kind started appearing around, famous actresses, exotic dancers, and casino dealers from every walk of life. That was when I understood that a man's vows were laughably cheap. Gia, look at me. Vito didn't pull his hand away. Instead, he stepped closer, his warm fingertips tracing my cheek with an almost obsessive tenderness. To punish me, Vito replaced me with Juliana at Corti family's annual gala. She wore my custom gown, looking radiant under the chandelier, while I sat alone in the corner like an outsider watching their absurd performance. Vito walked her around, introducing her to every guest. This is Juliana, my friend. A vague title, but enough for everyone to understand her position. The guests kept glancing between us. Halfway through the evening, Juliana approached me with a wine glass, swaying gracefully. She stopped a few steps away, right in front of Mama's oil portrait hanging on the wall behind me. I'd commissioned Emaly's most renowned painter for that piece, wanting her to watch over me always. She raised her glass with a smile. Madre, sitting here alone must be so dull. Let me toast you. Just then, she stumbled. The red wine spilled from her glass in a perfect arc, splashing across Mama's portrait. Crimson liquid slid down her gentle face. Juliana let out an exaggerated shriek. Oh no! I'm so sorry, Madre. I didn't mean to. Apologies poured from her mouth while malice gleamed in her eye. Rage blinded me. I shot to my feet and slapped her hard across the face. The entire ballroom fell silent. Everyone froze at the sudden violence. Juliana clutched her cheek and stared at me in disbelief as tears welled up. You hit me? I met her gaze with ice in my eyes. Hit you? I'm going to kill you. I lunged forward and grabbed her throat, slamming her against the wall. In that moment, I forgot everything. I only wanted this woman who defiled Mama's memory to pay. Stop! The shout snapped me back to reality. Vito strode over and shoved me aside, pulling the trembling Juliana behind him protectively. The force sent me stumbling backward into the dining table. My wrist cracked against the corner, sending pain shooting through my arm. Apologize to Juliana. I stared at him in shock. What did you say? He repeated each word slowly. I said, apologize to her. I looked at him, at the woman putting on such a pitiful act in his arms, and felt the absurdity of Tial. I screamed. She's the one who needs to apologize. She deliberately destroyed Mama's portrait. Vito's expression darkened further. All I saw was you acting like a wild woman at my gala, challenging my authority in front of everyone. He swept his gaze across the watching guests, barely concealing his anger. Guards. 2 soldati stepped forward immediately. Take the madre to her room. No one visits her without my permission. His words hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't believe these words came from the man I'd loved for so many years. The 2 guards seized my arms with bruising force. I thrashed wildly. Let go of me. Vito, you can't do this to me. In my struggle, I lost my balance and crashed into a massive marble column. Searing pain exploded in my forehead. Warm liquid trickled down my cheek. The world spun before my eye. In the last moment before I lost consciousness, I saw Vito's cold, indifferent expression and the eyes, the umphant sneer curling Juliana's lips. Darkness swallowed me whole. When I woke again, it was deep into the night. The confinement room that held me was freezing. My wrist hung at an unnatural angle, limp and useless. The pain was unbearable. No one came to treat me. I remembered years ago when Vito took a bad hit during a shootout. I stayed at his bedside for 3 days and nights without sleep, changing his bandages myself and he, helping him drink water. Back then, he held my hand and said weakly, Gia, I'm lucky to have. Now, he discarded me for another woman. The agony from my broken wrist and the throbbing in my temple felt like they were eating me alive. For 2 full days and nights, I lay curled on the cold floor, sweat soaking through my clothes over and over. Fever clouded my mind, but the searing pain kept dragging me back to consciousness. I couldn't even close my eye. On the 3rd day, the heavy door finally opened. It wasn't him, just a doctor with a medical bag. This was Vito's version of mercy. The man checked my wrist with an expressionless face, then set the bone with brutal efficiency. A sickening crack accompanied the wave of pain that nearly knocked me unconscious. I bit down hard on my lip to keep from screaming. The taste of blood filled my mouth. The doctor studied me coldly. You waited too long. The bone already